Right now, in this very moment, you're carrying weight you don't need to carry. It's not in your hands or on your shoulders. It's in your mind. Thousands of thoughts you didn't choose racing through your consciousness every single day. Worries about tomorrow that haven't happened yet. Regrets about yesterday that you can't change. And somewhere underneath all that noise is a question you might not even realize you're asking. Is this it? Is this what life is supposed to feel like? Here's what most people don't understand. The chaos you're experiencing isn't happening to you. You're creating it, not intentionally, not maliciously, but through patterns so automatic you've stopped noticing them. And here's the remarkable part. The same mind that creates your suffering can create your freedom. Not someday, not after you fix everything else, right now. Over the next 3 hours, we're going on a journey together. Not to some distant philosophy or abstract spirituality. We're going to explore something radically practical. How your thoughts literally construct the reality you experience, and how changing those patterns changes everything. This isn't theory, this is mechanics. And by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly how to work with your own mind instead of being controlled by it. Before we go deeper, I want to create something special here. Wherever you are right now, whatever time it is in your part of the world, drop a comment below. Just tell us your location and what time you're listening. Maybe you're in Tokyo at sunrise, or Los Angeles in the middle of the night, or somewhere in between. When you share that, you're connecting with thousands of other people on this same journey, and you're reminding yourself that this path toward inner freedom isn't walked alone. So pause for just a moment and leave that comment. We'll be here when you get back. So let's start our journey. Let me tell you about two people living almost identical lives. Same neighborhood, same weather, same daily commute. One walks through their day building resentment with every interaction. Traffic irritates them. Co-workers annoy them. Every minor inconvenience becomes evidence that the world is against them. The other person faces the exact same circumstances, but plants different seeds in their mind. Patience when things move slowly. Curiosity when people act unexpectedly. Small moments of appreciation for what's working. By the end of each day, these two people live in completely different worlds. Not because their circumstances differ, but because they've cultivated entirely different inner landscapes. One has grown a garden of thorns. The other has created something that actually sustains them. Here's what's fascinating. Neither of them made one big choice that determined their experience. They made thousands of tiny choices, most of them unconscious, about which thoughts to water and which to let wither. And those micro choices accumulated into totally different ways of being alive. Think about your own mind right now. What have you been planting there? When someone cuts you off in traffic, what seed goes into the ground? When your child spills something for the third time today, what are you cultivating? When the news fills you with rage at injustice you can't immediately fix, what's taking root? These aren't rhetorical questions. Your answers are literally creating your experience of being alive. Because here's the truth that changes everything once you really see it. You are what you think. Not you will become what you think if you try hard enough. You are what you think right this moment. The thought creates the reality before any action happens. Let me give you a concrete example. There's a person who rides the same train every morning. For months, they stood there thinking the same thoughts. These people are in my way. Why can't they move faster? I shouldn't have to deal with this. And every single morning their body responded to those thoughts. Jaw clenching, chest tightening, arriving at work already exhausted from a battle nobody else was fighting. Then, one random Tuesday, nothing special about the day itself, they had a different thought. Just, "We're all trying to get somewhere." That's it. 4 words. The train was exactly as crowded. The delays were exactly as long. But they arrived calm. A colleague actually asked if they'd changed medications. They hadn't changed medications. They hadn't changed circumstances. They changed one thought pattern, and it grew into an entirely different day. This is what I mean by mechanics, not poetry. Cause and effect as reliable as gravity. Plant seeds of irritation, and you'll harvest stress. Plant seeds of patience, and you'll harvest peace. The soil is neutral. It will grow whatever you give it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most people don't know they have this choice. They think their thoughts just happen to them, like weather. Someone insults them, and anger arises, and they believe that's just how it works. Stimulus, automatic response, no gap, no choice. But there's always a gap, always. Between the stimulus and your response, there's a space. Tiny, easy to miss, but it's there. And in that space lives your freedom. When someone wrongs you, you can think, "They humiliated me, they defeated me, they took what was mine." You can rehearse those thoughts. Turn them into your identity. Let them become who you are. And if you do that, you'll never be free from hatred. Never. The hatred becomes you. Or you can let those thoughts pass like clouds across an open sky, not suppressing them, not pretending they're not there, just not grabbing them, not making them into a story about who you are. And when you do that, hatred has nothing to feed on. It dissolves on its own. This is the ancient principle that hasn't changed in 25 centuries. Hatred never ends through hatred. Hatred ends through love. Not because love is nicer or more spiritual, because hatred perpetuates itself and love doesn't. You can see this pattern in families, in nations, in comment sections online. Someone has to stop returning blow for blow, or the violence never ends. Right now, today, this hour, you face this fork in the path constantly. Every interaction is a choice point. Which seed do you plant? The news triggers rage. Which seed? Your partner says something thoughtless. Which seed? You make a mistake and your inner critic starts up. Which seed? You're not choosing once and being done with it. You are choosing constantly. And what grows in your inner garden becomes the atmosphere you live in. Not metaphorically, literally. The thoughts you cultivate create the biochemistry of your body, the electrical patterns in your brain, the lens through which you interpret every experience. Let me be clear about something important. This isn't about never feeling pleasure or suffering to prove your worth. It's about not living for pleasure, not making it your compass, your purpose, your reason for existing. There's a massive difference between enjoying your morning coffee and needing your morning coffee to feel human, between appreciating comfort and demanding comfort at all times, between pleasure as a welcome guest in your life and pleasure as a tyrant who controls you. Some people build their entire existence around chasing the next good feeling and avoiding anything uncomfortable. And you know what happens? They become like weak trees that shake with every wind. But people who don't make pleasure their master, who maintain some equilibrium, who practice moderation, they stand firm like mountains. Think about someone you know who lives this way. Maybe it's you. They wake up and immediately reach for their phone, scrolling through social media before their eyes are fully open. They need coffee, not want it, need it. Throughout the day, they're constantly seeking the next hit of dopamine, a snack here, a purchase there, endless entertainment, constant stimulation, and by the end of the day, they're exhausted but can't sleep without scrolling some more. This person isn't bad or wrong. They're just caught in a pattern of using pleasure to avoid being present with themselves. And that pattern has consequences. They never feel satisfied because satisfaction isn't found in the next thing. It's found in being okay with what is. Contrast that with someone who has broken free from pleasure's tyranny. They might enjoy the same things, coffee, entertainment, good food, but they're not enslaved to them. They can have coffee or not have coffee and be equally fine. They can be entertained or sit in silence and be equally content. They've discovered something most people never find: the deep satisfaction that comes from not needing external circumstances to be a certain way. And this brings us to something crucial: staying awake enough to keep choosing wisely. Because even when you understand these principles intellectually, the mind has a way of drifting back to sleep. The old patterns reassert themselves. The automatic reactions take over. That's why sustained attention is essential.
The word for this quality of sustained awareness is vigilance, but not the vigilance of paranoia or anxiety. More like the vigilance of a parent listening for their child's breath in the dark. Attention without tension, presence without panic. How much of your life have you actually been present for? Really here, experiencing it? Or were you somewhere else, replaying yesterday, rehearsing tomorrow, numbing out with whatever distraction was handy? Most people sleepwalk through entire decades. They move on autopilot, and when death finally comes, they realize they were never really alive. Think about it. It's 3 in the morning. The baby is crying again. A parent stands there, exhausted beyond measure, running on empty. They have a choice in that moment. They can think, "I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. I'm failing. Other parents don't struggle like this," and spiral down into despair. Or they can think, "This is hard right now. I'm here. We're both here. This moment will pass." Same dark room, same crying baby. 2 completely different experiences. Or consider someone working 12 hours straight, deadline looming, emails multiplying faster than they can answer them. They can panic. "I'm going to fail. I'm going to get fired. I'm not good enough," and lose what little focus they have left. Or they can pause, take one breath, and think, "What's the next right action?" Just one thing at a time. Vigilance isn't about never struggling. It's about being awake inside the struggle. It's about maintaining awareness even when everything in you wants to check out, escape, or go on autopilot. Here's a powerful image. When floods come, and they will come, you need high ground you've prepared in advance. You can't build an island in the middle of the storm. The practice is now, in these ordinary moments when nothing dramatic is happening. Wake up a little earlier. Notice your breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Taste your food. These small acts of presence build the island stone by stone. Then, when grief hits, when panic comes, when the diagnosis arrives, you have somewhere to stand. Not invulnerable, but not swept away either. Let me tell you about someone who learned this lesson too late. They spent their whole life postponing presence. Always busy, always moving, always planning the next thing. They were going to slow down after this project. They were going to spend quality time with family once work settled down. They were going to start meditating when they retired. They were going to really live once they had time. Then they got a diagnosis that changed everything. Stage 4 cancer, maybe 6 months. Suddenly, all that future time they'd been counting on evaporated, and they realized with devastating clarity that they'd never really been present for any of it. not for their children's childhood, not for their own life. They'd been so busy preparing to live that they forgot to actually live. In those final months, they tried to cram in all the presents they'd postponed, and they did experience moments of profound clarity and connection. But there was also grief for all the moments they'd missed, all the ordinary days they'd sleepwalked through, convinced they had unlimited time. You don't have unlimited time. None of us do. But you have right now, this moment, and this one, and this one. That's all any of us ever have. The question is, are you here for it? What exactly are we watching with this vigilance? The mind. Always the mind. It's restless, hard to guard, hard to control, like a fish pulled from water, thrashing desperately. That's your mind when you try to sit still for even 5 minutes. It makes grocery lists, replays arguments from days ago, plans vacations, wonders if you left the stove on. There was a meditation student who sat down with the best intentions, ready to focus on the breath. Within seconds, the mind was wandering, brought it back, wandered again. After 10 minutes, frustrated, they told their teacher, "My mind won't behave. I can't make it stay still." The teacher smiled and said something profound. You think the mind is supposed to obey you. That's like thinking the weather should obey you. The mind wanders. That's what minds do. Your job isn't to stop it from wandering. Your job is to notice when it wanders and gently bring it back. How many times? As many times as it wanders. 10,000 times if necessary. That's the practice. This student continued practicing. Some days the mind was relatively calm. Other days it was a hurricane of thoughts. But gradually something shifted. Not that the thoughts stopped coming, but the identification with them loosened. They could watch thoughts arise and pass without believing every story the mind told. They could feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. They could notice impulses without automatically acting on them. This is what training the mind actually means. Not achieving some perfect state of blank emptiness, but developing the capacity to observe your own mental processes with some distance, some perspective. To see thoughts as thoughts, emotions as emotions, impulses as impulses, rather than as absolute truth or commands you must obey. Your thoughts live in the cave of your heart, mostly unseen even by you, running your entire life from that hidden place. Someone whose mind is unsteady, who doesn't know true teaching, whose confidence wavers, their wisdom never becomes complete. But someone whose mind isn't flooded by desire, isn't afflicted by hate, who has transcended both good and evil, for that person who is awake, there is no fear. Here's what changes everything once you understand it. There's a gap between thought and action, a space where choice lives. The thought arises, I want to yell at this person. In the gap, you can notice, oh, anger is here. You don't have to yell. The thought isn't the action. The thought arises, I need another drink, another cookie, another hour of scrolling. In the gap, you notice, oh, craving is here. You don't have to obey it. Guarding the mind means becoming aware of that gap and learning to live in it, not suppressing thoughts, seeing them clearly, and choosing how to respond. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. You're in a meeting and someone takes credit for your idea. Instantly, anger flares. The thought arises, I need to call them out right now, expose them, make sure everyone knows they're lying. In the old pattern, you'd act on that thought immediately. Words would come out of your mouth before you'd even decided to speak. But if you've been practicing vigilance, something different happens. The anger arises, the thought arises, but there's a moment, a pause, where you observe what's happening. Oh, this is anger. This is the impulse to attack. And in that observation, choice becomes possible. You might still address the situation, but you can do it skillfully instead of reactively. Or you might realize this isn't the right moment and choose to let it go entirely. That gap between stimulus and response, that's where your freedom lives. And the more you practice noticing it, the wider it becomes. This body won't last long. Eventually, it will lie on the ground like a useless log. Whatever harm an enemy can do to an enemy, or a hater to another hater, far worse is the harm from a wrongly directed mind. But a well-directed mind does you more good than your mother, your father, or any other relative could ever do. Because no one else can think for you. No one else can choose the seeds you plant. This work is yours alone. Now, let me address something most people get confused about. They think spiritual practice means achieving some perfect state where you never feel negative emotions. That's not it at all. A well-trained mind isn't one that never experiences anger. It's one that can feel anger without becoming anger, can notice fear without being ruled by fear, can observe desire without being enslaved by desire. Think of your mind like working with a powerful animal. You don't control it through force. You calm it through patience. You speak softly. You wait. You offer it safety until it settles on its own. Let me tell you about someone who learned this the hard way. They had a serious coffee habit, not just enjoying coffee, but completely dependent on it. Couldn't function without it. Couldn't be pleasant to anyone until they'd had their coffee. Traveled with coffee equipment because they couldn't trust anyone else to make it right. Got anxious if their specific brand wasn't available. What started as a harmless pleasure had become a chain. They tried quitting completely, cold turkey, but that was miserable. They were irritable, got headaches, couldn't focus. That was just swapping one extreme for another, pleasure addiction for harsh deprivation. Instead, they learned something more subtle, to drink coffee without needing it. They started by skipping it one day a week, just one day, sitting with the discomfort of not having what they usually had, noticing the craving arise, watching it peak, observing it gradually fade. It was uncomfortable, but it didn't kill them. Gradually, they increased it, 2 days a week without coffee, then 3, sometimes having it, sometimes not. And something remarkable happened. When they did have coffee, they enjoyed it more. It became a pleasure again instead of a desperate need. And when they didn't have it, they were fine. Not thrilled, but fine. Functional. Present. That's equanimity. Not indifference, not numbness, just not being controlled by preferences. This applies to everything. You can love someone without possessing them. You can enjoy pleasure without addiction to it. You can care deeply without clinging desperately. The key is learning to experience things fully while maintaining your freedom. Here's a practice you can start right now, today, this moment. Pick one routine activity, washing dishes, walking to your car, eating lunch, just one. For that activity, commit to being completely present, not thinking about what's next or what just happened. Just here, doing this one thing, noticing the sensations, the movements, the actual experience. You'll be shocked how difficult this is at first. Your mind will resist. It will insist that planning the future or reviewing the past is more important than being present for washing dishes. That's fine, expected. Just keep bringing your attention back. You're building the muscle of presence, and like any muscle, it strengthens with use. Let me walk you through what this might actually look like. You're washing dishes. You decide to be present for it. You feel the warm water on your hands. You notice the soap making bubbles. You hear the sound of the dishes clinking together. You feel the texture of the sponge. For maybe 3 seconds, you're actually there. Then your mind wanders. You're thinking about the email you need to send. You notice you're thinking about the email. You bring your attention back to the dishes. Water, soap, dishes. 5 seconds this time. Then you're planning tomorrow's schedule. Notice. Return. Water, soap, dishes. This happens over and over. That's not failure. That's the practice. The wandering is normal. The noticing and returning, that's where the training happens. Each time you notice and return, you're strengthening your capacity for presence. As you get better at this, expand it. 2 activities, then 3. Eventually, you might spend entire hours actually experiencing your life instead of thinking about it. And something remarkable happens when you do this consistently. You realize that the present moment, this one right here, is the only moment that ever exists. Past is memory. Future is imagination. Only now is real. And in that realization lives a kind of freedom most people never experience. Because if only now is real, then you can't actually suffer from the past or the future. You can only suffer from your thoughts about them. And thoughts, when you see them clearly, are just thoughts. They arise, they pass, like clouds across the sky. I want to go deeper into what this presence actually reveals when you sustain it. Most people live their entire lives identified with their thoughts. They think they are their thoughts. The thought, "I'm not good enough," arises, and they don't see it as a thought. They experience it as reality, as truth about who they are. But when you practice presence consistently, something shifts. You begin to notice that thoughts are just events happening in consciousness. They arise from nowhere. They exist for a moment. They disappear into nowhere. Just like sounds. A bird chirps outside. The sound arises, exists, fades. You don't think you are the bird chirp. You don't build your identity around it. Thoughts work the same way. The thought, "I'm anxious," arises. It's just a thought. It might be accompanied by bodily sensations, butterflies in the stomach, tightness in the chest, but those are also just sensations arising and passing. When you see this clearly, something profound happens. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. This isn't just philosophical. This has immediate practical implications. If you're not your thoughts, then you don't have to believe every thought that arises. The thought, "I'm going to fail," can arise, and you can observe it without being convinced by it. The thought, "I should give up," can appear, and you can let it pass without acting on it. Someone who discovered this described it like watching weather. Thoughts and emotions arise like weather patterns. Sometimes it's sunny in your mind. Sometimes it's stormy. Sometimes it's calm. Sometimes it's turbulent. But you're not the weather. You're the sky in which the weather appears. The sky isn't disturbed by storms. It contains them, witnesses them, but remains fundamentally unchanged. This might sound abstract, but it becomes concrete through practice. Sit quietly for 10 minutes and just watch your thoughts. Don't try to control them. Don't judge them. Just observe. Notice how they arise without your permission. Notice how they often contradict each other. Notice how they fade away if you don't engage with them. One thought says you should work harder. Another thought says you should relax more. One thought worries about money. Another thought dismisses that worry. The thoughts don't even agree with themselves. Why would you assume any single thought is absolute truth? This practice of watching thoughts reveals something liberating. Most of your suffering comes not from circumstances, but from your thoughts about circumstances. The circumstance is neutral. The interpretation creates the suffering. It's raining. That's a neutral fact. The thought, "This ruins my day," creates suffering. The thought, "This is pleasant and cozy," creates contentment. Same rain, different thoughts, different experiences. You can't always control circumstances, but you can learn to see your thoughts as thoughts rather than as truth. And in that seeing, you gain freedom.
Now, let's understand what you're building. Every action you take is like planting a seed. Some seeds grow into beautiful flowers you can gather today. Some plant themselves deeper, blooming later when you've forgotten you planted them. Either way, you're always choosing which seeds to cultivate. Think of someone who lies because it's easier than telling the truth. The lie works, so they lie again. Small lies become bigger lies. Eventually, their whole life rests on fabrication and they can't remember what's real anymore. Or someone who uses anger as a weapon because it gets results. People back down when you rage at them. It feels like power until everyone who loves you learns to stay away and you're powerful and alone. Here's a simple test for any action. How do you feel the next morning? Not in the moment of impulse when everything feels justified. The next day, the next week when consequences arrive. That feeling tells you everything you need to know about whether you planted something nourishing or something toxic. Evil, and I use that word deliberately, seems sweet to the fool until it ripens. Think of someone eating an entire cake. Delicious for a while. Then the stomachache comes, then the shame, then the pattern repeats because the lesson wasn't learned. A harmful action doesn't immediately bear fruit, like milk doesn't curdle instantly. It follows you, burning like fire covered with ashes. That delay between action and consequence is what makes everything so tricky. Do something harmful, and nothing bad happens right away, so you think you got away with it. Do it again, still nothing. The fire is burning underneath the whole time, invisible, until suddenly everything's ablaze and you can't remember how it started. Let me tell you about someone who spent years blaming everyone else for what was wrong with their life. Parents who didn't understand them, teachers who didn't see their potential, partners who didn't appreciate them, employers who didn't recognize their worth, an endless list of people who had failed them. Then, after another relationship ended the same way all the others had, they had a terrifying thought. What if it's me? Not, I'm terrible or I'm worthless, just, what if the common factor in all these situations is me? And what if I have some power to change that? That thought was terrifying, but also liberating. Because if other people were the problem, they were powerless. If they were the problem, or at least part of it, they could do something about it. That's when the real work started. Not blaming themselves instead of others, but taking responsibility for the only thing they could actually control. Their own actions, their own responses, their own patterns. They started noticing every relationship ended with the same fight. Different people, different circumstances, but the same dynamic.
They'd feel unappreciated, get defensive, shut down emotionally, wait for the other person to apologize first, then act surprised when the relationship fell apart. Seeing the pattern didn't instantly fix it, but seeing it meant they could start working with it instead of being blindly controlled by it. That's what becoming your own refuge means. Not that you never need help, you do, but that you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you and start taking responsibility for your own liberation. This person started doing something radical. Every time a relationship conflict arose, instead of immediately assuming the other person was wrong, they asked themselves, "What's my part in this?" Not "what's my fault," but "what's my part?" What am I contributing to this dynamic? At first, this was incredibly uncomfortable. The ego hates admitting any fault. It wants to be blameless, righteous, the victim of others' failures. But gradually, they started seeing their patterns clearly. When they felt unappreciated, they would withdraw instead of expressing their needs directly. They expected people to read their mind. Then, when people inevitably failed to read their mind, they took it as confirmation that they weren't valued. This created a self-fulfilling prophecy. They were generating the very experience they feared. Once they saw this clearly, they could experiment with different responses. Instead of withdrawing when they felt unappreciated, they practiced expressing their needs clearly. "I'm feeling disconnected from you. Can we spend some time together?" Simple, direct, honest. It felt vulnerable and awkward at first, but something remarkable happened. People responded. Not perfectly, not every time, but often enough. And the relationships that had always ended in the same fight started having different outcomes. This is what taking responsibility for your own liberation looks like in practice. Not blaming yourself, not taking on responsibility for other people's actions, but owning your part, seeing your patterns, and choosing to experiment with different responses. By yourself is evil done. By yourself are you defiled. By yourself is evil left undone. By yourself are you purified. Purity and impurity depend on yourself. No one can purify another. This is simultaneously the hardest and most hopeful teaching. Hardest because you can't blame anyone else. Most hopeful because you don't have to wait for anyone else to change. The evil you commit is born from yourself, produced by yourself, arising from yourself. It crushes you like a diamond grinds down hard stone. Your own harmful patterns, unchecked, will eventually crush the good in you. You see this in addiction. Something that started as relief becomes the thing that's killing you. Someone starts drinking to cope with stress. It works initially. The stress fades, the anxiety quiets. But gradually, the drinking creates more problems than it solves. Health problems, relationship problems, work problems. Now they're drinking to cope with the problems created by drinking. The pattern feeds itself. You see it in resentment. Something that started as justified anger becomes poison you drink daily, expecting someone else to die from it. Someone hurts you. The anger is understandable, but instead of addressing it and releasing it, you rehearse it. You replay the incident over and over. You imagine confrontations. You build a case. The resentment becomes part of your identity. Years pass. The person who hurt you has moved on, probably forgotten the incident entirely. But you're still carrying it, still suffering from it, still letting it poison your present moment. Who's being hurt by this resentment? Not them, you. Easy to do what's bad for yourself. What's good for yourself is very hard to do. Why? Because bad habits feel good immediately. The relief, the escape, the numbness, the pleasure. Good habits feel hard immediately. The discipline, the discomfort, the delayed gratification. Your mind, untrained, will always choose what feels good now over what's good for you long term. That's not a moral failing. That's how minds work. Training changes the equation. Let me give you a concrete example. You're trying to eat healthier. You've decided to stop eating junk food. Then you have a stressful day. You're tired, frustrated, overwhelmed, and your mind says, you deserve a treat. You've had a hard day. Just this once, it won't matter. The junk food feels good immediately. Sweet, salty, satisfying. The healthy meal you'd planned feels like deprivation, like more work when you're already exhausted. Your untrained mind will choose the junk food every time in that moment. But a trained mind operates differently. It can see beyond the immediate moment. It remembers how you feel after eating junk food. The sugar crash, the guilt, the disappointment in yourself. It remembers how you feel after eating well. The sustained energy, the satisfaction of keeping a commitment to yourself, the pride in making a choice aligned with your values. The trained mind doesn't make decisions based solely on immediate feeling. It considers the full arc of consequences. And gradually, the healthy choice becomes easier because you've trained yourself to value long-term well-being over momentary pleasure. This applies to everything. Exercise versus staying on the couch, difficult conversation versus avoiding conflict, creating something versus passive consumption. The good choice is almost always harder immediately and better long-term. The bad choice is almost always easier immediately and worse long-term. Never neglect your own welfare for another's, however great. Once you know what's good for you, be intent on it. This isn't selfish, it's wisdom. You can't help anyone if you're drowning. You can't give from an empty well. Flight attendants understand this perfectly. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Not because you matter more, but because if you pass out, you can't help anyone.
I see this pattern constantly in people who pride themselves on being selfless. They give and give and give until they're completely depleted. Then they wonder why they feel resentful, why they snap at loved ones, why they can't seem to find joy anymore. They've neglected their own well-being in service of others, and now they have nothing left to give. True sustainability in helping others requires maintaining your own foundation. That means sleep, nourishment, rest, activities that replenish you. It means setting boundaries. It means sometimes saying no. It means recognizing that you are not infinite and that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. The path is yours alone. No one can walk it for you. Your parents can't do it. Your teachers can't do it. Your therapist, your partner, your spiritual guide. They can point, they can encourage, they can walk alongside, but the actual steps are yours. So wake up, not tomorrow when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready, now, with things exactly as they are, exactly as you are. Let me give you something practical to work with. For the next week, try this experiment. At the end of each day, before you sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. What seeds did I plant today that I'm proud of? What seeds did I plant that I regret? What will I do differently tomorrow? Don't judge yourself. Don't spiral into guilt. Just notice. Awareness itself begins to change patterns. When you shine light on something, it shifts, not through force, but through seeing clearly. You might notice you were patient with one person, but harsh with another. You might see you were generous in one area, but stingy in another. You might realize you took care of your body, but neglected your mind, or vice versa. All of this is useful information, not ammunition for self-criticism, but data for growth. And here's what starts happening when you do this consistently. You begin catching yourself in the moment instead of only in retrospect. You're about to plant a harmful seed and you pause. You notice. You choose differently. Not perfectly, not every time, but more often. And those moments of conscious choice accumulate into a different way of being. Let me tell you what this looked like for someone who practiced this.
The first week, they mostly noticed patterns in retrospect. They'd be harsh with their teenager, and hours later, writing in their journal, they'd think, "I wish I'd been more patient there. That was my own stress, not really about what they did." The second week, the gap between action and awareness shortened. They'd be harsh with their teenager, and within an hour, they'd notice, "Oh, I was triggered. That wasn't skillful." They'd apologize, repair the interaction. By the fourth week, something remarkable happened. They were about to snap at their teenager, and in that moment, they caught themselves. They felt the irritation rising. They noticed the harsh words forming, and they paused, took a breath, chose a different response. "I'm feeling stressed right now. Can we talk about this in 10 minutes? That pause, that moment of catching yourself in the act, that's transformation happening in real time. Not because you've become perfect, because you've become conscious. And consciousness includes compassion for your own humanity, your own struggles, your own learning process. When you notice you planted a harmful seed, the response isn't, "I'm terrible, I'm hopeless, I'll never change." The response is, "Oh, interesting. I did that thing again. I wonder what was underneath that. What was I feeling? What need was I trying to meet? What can I learn from this?" Curiosity instead of judgment. Investigation instead of condemnation. This is how you work with yourself skillfully. Someone practicing this way noticed they always snapped at their partner when they came home from work. Every day, same pattern. Partner would greet them cheerfully, and they'd respond with irritation. They felt terrible about it, but couldn't seem to stop. Instead of just judging themselves as a bad partner, they got curious. What was happening in those moments? They started paying attention, and they realized by the time they got home, they were completely peopled out. They'd been in meetings all day, managing others' needs, being on for hours. When they walked through the door, they had nothing left. The cheerful greeting felt like one more demand on their depleted resources. Understanding this, they could address it differently. They talked to their partner, explained that they needed 20 minutes of quiet time when they first got home, not because they didn't love their partner, because they needed to transition, to decompress. The partner understood. Now when they came home, they had a new routine. 20 minutes alone in their room, just sitting, breathing, letting the day fall away. Then they could engage warmly. This is the power of awareness with curiosity. The pattern didn't change through willpower or self-criticism. It changed through understanding and skillful adjustment. Let's talk about what actually creates suffering, because most people misunderstand this completely. They think suffering comes from bad circumstances. If only I had more money. If only my partner understood me better. If only my health was better. If only the world was different, then I wouldn't suffer. But here's what you discover when you pay close attention. Suffering doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from your relationship to circumstances, from clinging to what you want to keep, from pushing away what you want to avoid, from the fundamental misunderstanding that things should be permanent when nothing is. Everything changes, absolutely everything. The good moments fade, the bad moments pass. The person you love ages, the body you inhabit deteriorates. The certainties you built your life on shift and crumble. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. And suffering arises when you pretend this isn't true, when you grasp at the good moments, trying to make them last forever, when you resist the bad moments, insisting they shouldn't be happening, when you build your identity on things that are constantly changing and then feel shattered when they change. Let me tell you about someone who learned this through devastating experience. They built their entire identity around being an athlete. From childhood, their worth was tied to physical achievement. They were the star, the champion, the one who excelled. Their self-esteem, their friendships, their purpose, all rooted in athletic success. Then an injury, career ending, sudden, final. And they fell apart, completely. because they hadn't lost just their sport, they'd lost who they thought they were. The identity they'd constructed on something impermanent had crumbled, and there was nothing underneath. In the depths of that crisis, they had to rebuild from scratch. Who am I when I can't do the thing that defined me? And slowly, painfully, they discovered something more stable. Not an identity based on achievement or physical ability, but a sense of self rooted in awareness itself. The consciousness that witnesses all experiences but isn't defined by any of them. This wasn't some mystical realization, it was practical survival. They had to find something in themselves that didn't depend on external circumstances. And what they found was the awareness that remains regardless of what's happening. Whether they're succeeding or failing, healthy or injured, praised or criticized, there's an awareness present that witnesses all of it. That awareness became their refuge, not because it made everything better. The loss was still painful, the grief was real, but underneath the pain was something that wasn't suffering, something stable, something that couldn't be taken away by circumstances. This is what it means to find the deathless in the midst of constant change. Not that you become immune to pain, but that you find something in yourself that isn't touched by the constant flux of conditions. Most people never find this because they're too busy arranging circumstances to be permanently pleasant, and it's an impossible task. You get what you want and immediately start fearing you'll lose it. You avoid what you don't want, and it shows up anyway. You try to control what can't be controlled and exhaust yourself in the effort. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. For one free from pleasure, there's no grief, so how could there be fear? This sounds impossibly severe until you understand what it actually means. It's not about never experiencing pleasure. It's about not being enslaved to pleasure, not building your happiness on it, not needing it to feel okay. You can enjoy pleasure when it's present without clinging to it when it fades. You can appreciate good circumstances without being devastated when they change. You can love deeply without the terror of loss consuming you. Think about the difference between enjoying a sunset and desperately needing the sunset to never end. One is pleasure, the other is the seed of suffering. The sunset will end. That's not a problem unless you've decided it shouldn't. Someone described this shift beautifully. Before, they said, I lived in constant anxiety. When things were good, I was terrified they'd get bad. When things were bad, I was desperate for them to be good. I was never actually okay. I was always either clinging or resisting. After years of practice, something changed. Things still got good and bad. Circumstances still fluctuated. But underneath the fluctuation was a steadiness, an okayness that didn't depend on circumstances. Good things came and they enjoyed them without grasping. Bad things came and they handled them without falling apart. Nothing external had changed. Everything internal had shifted. This is the freedom that's possible. Not freedom from difficulty, freedom in the midst of difficulty. Not invulnerability to pain, but the capacity to experience pain without it destroying you. And this brings us to something crucial, the relationship between pain and suffering. They're not the same thing. Pain is inevitable. Physical pain, emotional pain, the loss of loss, the pain of change. If you're alive and conscious, you'll experience pain. That's non-negotiable. But suffering is optional. Suffering is what happens when you add resistance to pain, when you tell yourself this shouldn't be happening, when you spin stories about how terrible this is, how unfair, how you can't handle it. The pain is there regardless. The suffering comes from your relationship to the pain. An example, you have a headache. That's pain, physical discomfort in your head. Now notice what your mind does with that pain. It might say, this is terrible. I can't work like this. Why does this always happen to me? What if it gets worse? What if it's something serious? I can't stand this. That's suffering, the stories and resistance layered on top of the pain. Or your mind might relate to the same headache differently. This is uncomfortable. I'll take some medicine and rest. Sensations are arising in my head. They're unpleasant, but they'll pass. Same pain, much less suffering. The difference is acceptance versus resistance. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the pain or want it to continue. It means you acknowledge what is without adding layers of story and resistance. This is happening. Okay. What's the skillful response? This becomes especially important with emotional pain. Someone criticizes you. That stings. There's an immediate feeling of hurt. That's pain, emotional pain. Now watch what happens next. Your mind might say, "They're right. I'm terrible. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. I'll never succeed. I should just give up." Or it might say, "Who do they think they are? How dare they? I'll show them. I'll prove them wrong." Either way, you've taken the initial sting and turned it into a full production of suffering. Or you might relate to it differently. That criticism hurt. Let me feel this hurt without magnifying it. Is there any truth in what they said that I can learn from? Or is this more about them than about me? Either way, this feeling will pass. The initial pain is the same. The suffering is dramatically different. Someone who practiced this way described a remarkable experience. They lost their job unexpectedly, got fired. The immediate reaction was shock, hurt, fear, real pain. But instead of spiraling into the usual catastrophizing, they stayed with just what was actually happening. I don't have this job anymore. That's what's true right now. They felt the feelings without spinning stories about what it meant about their worth, their future, their life. And something surprising happened. Underneath the pain, there was a kind of clarity. This job hadn't been right for a while. They'd been stuck, afraid to leave, and the universe had pushed them out of the nest. Within that clarity, they could start exploring what actually wanted to happen next, not from panic or desperation, but from genuine curiosity. 3 months later, they had a better job, one more aligned with what they actually wanted to do. And they realized the firing wasn't the catastrophe their mind wanted it to make it. It was a door opening. But they could only see that because they didn't add layers of suffering to the initial pain. This is enormously practical. You can't always control what happens to you. You can develop the capacity to meet what happens without multiplying the suffering through resistance and story. Now, some people hear this teaching and misunderstand it as passivity. Just accept everything and don't try to change anything. That's not it at all. Acceptance of what is doesn't mean resignation to what will be. You can fully accept the current reality and still work skillfully to change it. In fact, acceptance is what allows for effective action. When you're caught in resistance, spinning in stories about how things shouldn't be this way, you can't see clearly enough to respond skillfully. When you accept what is, you can see it clearly and act effectively. Your car breaks down. You can resist. This is terrible. This shouldn't happen. Why me? I can't deal with this. Or you can accept the car is broken. That's the current reality. What's the skillful next step? Call a mechanic. Arrange alternative transportation. Handle what needs handling. The acceptance doesn't mean you're happy about it. It means you're dealing with reality instead of arguing with it. This distinction is crucial. So many people waste enormous energy arguing with reality. It shouldn't rain today. I shouldn't be sick. This person should act differently. These thoughts change nothing about reality and add suffering to whatever is already happening. What if you dropped the should? It's raining. I'm sick. This person is acting this way. Okay. Given that this is what's actually happening, what's the wise response? The energy that was going into resistance is now available for skillful action. Let's talk about what freedom actually looks like, because most people have completely the wrong idea about it. They think freedom means having everything you want. That's just successful craving. They think freedom means never feeling pain. That's just lucky circumstances that won't last. Freedom is being okay regardless of circumstances. Not pretending everything's fine when it's not. Actually being okay at a level deeper than circumstances can touch. There's someone who completed this journey, who arrived at what we're all seeking. They have no more sorrow, no more burning. That burning of wanting, of comparing, of never being satisfied, it just stops. Not because they achieved everything they wanted, but because they stopped needing achievement to feel okay. Picture a swan that lived on a small pond for years. Good pond, plenty of food, safe from predators. One morning in autumn, something shifted. The air changed. Something in the swan's body knew time to go. It didn't hate the pond, wasn't running from danger, just the season had changed, and staying would mean dying. So it flew. That's the freedom I'm describing. Not escaping from something, but moving toward what's actually happening, what's actually needed, what's actually true. Not weighed down by the past or anxious about the future, just responding clearly to what is. Birds don't leave footprints in air. You can't track where they've been. That's what happens when you stop clinging. You move through life without creating heavy tracks of, I did this, I deserve that, remember when what about me? Even the gods envy someone whose senses are controlled, who is free from pride and corruption. Free from corruption doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means not being rotted from the inside by resentment, greed, self-deception, all the ways we slowly poison ourselves. Their mind is at peace. Their speech is at peace. Their actions are at peace. Freed by right knowledge, completely calm. This freedom seems far away when you're in the thick of struggle, when your mind is racing and your heart is tight and everything feels like too much. It seems like something only saints achieve, only after decades of practice, only if you're special somehow. But even one moment of actually being present shows you what's possible. One moment of not needing anything to be different. One moment of enough. That moment is the door. You can walk through it any time you remember it's there. Let me tell you about someone who found this door in the most ordinary circumstances. They were stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. All the conditions for suffering were present. The circumstance was frustrating, the consequences were real. In their old pattern, they would have been consumed by it, pounding the steering wheel, cursing other drivers, spinning in anxiety about the meeting. Instead, they had a moment of clarity. They thought, I am sitting in a car. That's what's actually happening right now. Not I'm late, not this is terrible, not what will they think, just I am sitting in a car. And in that simple acknowledgement of what was actually true, the suffering dropped away. The traffic didn't clear, the lateness didn't disappear, but the internal torment stopped. They were just there, breathing, noticing sensations, sounds, the play of light. When they arrived at the meeting 20 minutes late, they apologized calmly and joined the discussion. No drama, no story, just handling what needed handling. Later, they realized that moment in traffic was the same freedom people spend years seeking in meditation retreats. It wasn't about the circumstances being pleasant. It was about being present with what was actually happening instead of lost in stories about it. Better than 1,000 useless words is one word that brings peace. More isn't better. Better is better. We live in a world that counts everything. Steps, calories, followers, hours worked, books read, more, faster, bigger, longer. The entire culture runs on accumulation. But what if you stopped counting and started paying attention? What if one genuinely present moment is worth more than 1,000 distracted ones? What if one action taken with full awareness and intention is worth more than 100 done on autopilot? If someone conquered 1,000 opponents in battle 1,000 times and another person conquered only themselves, that second victory would be greater. Nobody sees that victory. There's no trophy, no applause, no recognition. It happens in the dark at 3 in the morning when you choose not to send the angry email, when you decide not to have the drink, when you stop the spiral of self-hatred before it takes you under. It's Tuesday afternoon. You're tired. Someone says something dismissive and you feel heat rise in your chest. Your mind instantly scripts the cutting response, the perfect comeback that will put them in their place. Old you would have said it, would have enjoyed the flash of power, the momentary satisfaction of winning, then spent the rest of the day feeling slightly sick, replaying it, justifying it, wondering if you went too far. New you, the one learning to conquer yourself, takes a breath, feels the urge, doesn't act on it, says something neutral or says nothing at all. Nobody notices, nobody congratulates you, but you just won a battle that matters more than any external victory. This is the real war, and it's fought in moments so small they seem insignificant. But these moments accumulate. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, each time you choose skillful response over habitual pattern, each time you choose presence over autopilot, you're building something. Greater than defeating yourself in battle is defeating yourself. Neither gods nor demons, neither death nor corruption can turn that victory into defeat. Because once you've tasted the freedom of not being controlled by every impulse, every fear, every craving, no one can take that from you. External circumstances can change. You can lose money, status, relationships, but the capacity to choose your response, that's yours. That can't be taken away unless you give it away. Let me tell you what this looks like in an ordinary life. There was someone working in a toxic environment, office politics, backstabbing, constant complaints. Everyone miserable and making sure everyone else was too. For months, they participated fully, complained with the complainers, gossiped with the gossipers, hated with the haters. One Monday, they decided to try something different, not to fix everyone else or change the culture, just to stop participating in the toxicity. When people complained, they listened without fueling the fire. When people gossiped, they changed the subject. When people spread hate, they stayed quiet or found something genuinely appreciative to say. It was lonely at first. The bonding everyone else did through shared misery wasn't available anymore. Some people thought they were being fake or judgmental. Some actively tried to pull them back into the drama. Come on, don't you think she's awful? You know what she did, right? But they held the line. Not self-righteously, not making others wrong for their choices, just quietly, consistently choosing not to participate. And something shifted. They went home less drained. The job didn't get better, the culture didn't transform, but they stopped carrying the poison home with them. They stopped letting other people's misery infect their inner state. And gradually, something surprising happened. A few other people started sitting near them at lunch, drawn to the absence of drama like plants turning toward light. Not because they were trying to be an example or change anyone, just because the quality of presence they were bringing created a different atmosphere. One person said to them, "I don't know what's different about you lately, but I feel calmer when I'm around you." They didn't know how to explain it. They hadn't made any dramatic changes. They just stopped feeding the toxicity, and that absence created space for something else. This is what it means to live happily without hate, among those who hate. Not pretending the hate isn't there, not being infected by it. Maintaining your own quality of mind regardless of the atmosphere around you. As long as you're keeping score, who won, who lost, who's ahead, you're trapped. The winner feels temporary satisfaction and fear of losing. The loser feels resentment and plans revenge. Both are suffering. Real joy comes when you stop playing the game entirely. This doesn't mean you don't care about outcomes. You can care deeply about doing good work, about treating people well, about contributing value. But you're not measuring your worth by wins and losses. You're not defining yourself by comparison to others. You're just showing up, doing what's yours to do, and letting go of the outcome. Health is the highest gain. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Not having everything you want, but wanting what you have. The billionaire who needs more is poor. The person with little who needs nothing is rich. Think about what wealth actually means. Not how much you have, but how much you need. Someone with $1 million who needs $2 million is in a state of poverty. Someone with $10,000 who needs nothing is wealthy. The difference is internal, not external. There was someone who realized this after years of chasing financial success. They achieved it, made the money they thought would solve everything, and discovered it solved almost nothing. They still woke up anxious, still felt like something was missing, still weren't satisfied. One day, they met someone who had very little materially, but seemed genuinely content. They asked, "How do you do it? How are you happy with so little?" And the person said something that changed everything. "I'm not happy with little, I'm happy with enough, and enough is abundance." That hit like lightning. They'd been living in artificial scarcity while surrounded by actual abundance. They had food, shelter, health, people who loved them, meaningful work, but they were focused entirely on what they didn't have. The next level, the next achievement, the next acquisition. And that focus created a sense of poverty regardless of actual circumstances. They started practicing contentment, not as resignation, but as recognition of what was already present. This food is nourishing. This roof keeps me dry. This body still works. These people care about me. Practicing gratitude not as a technique to get more, but as acknowledgement of what is. And something remarkable happened. The anxiety about money didn't disappear immediately, but it loosened. They found themselves making different choices, not working constantly to accumulate more, but working meaningfully and then stopping. Spending money on experiences with people they loved instead of on things meant to impress. Giving more generously because they felt abundant instead of scarce. Their actual financial situation barely changed. Their experience of wealth transformed completely. Now, let me address something crucial about this path. It's not walked alone. If you find a wise companion, someone steady and insightful, walk with them. Overcome all dangers together, mindful and happy. But if you don't find such a companion, wander alone like a great elephant in the forest. Better to walk alone than with fools who will drag you down. Who you spend time with shapes who you become. Spend time with people who complain, you'll complain more. Spend time with people who see clearly, you'll see more clearly. Not because they change you directly, but because their way of being shows you what's possible. This isn't about being superior to anyone or abandoning people who struggle. We all struggle. It's about being intentional about who you allow to influence your mind, your patterns, your way of being. Some people lift you up. Some people pull you down. Some people challenge you to grow. Some people enable your worst patterns. You have to be honest about this. That friend who always turns conversation into complaint, how do you feel after spending time with them? That family member who criticizes everything you do, what happens to your inner state when you're around them? That colleague who gossips constantly, does that bring out your best self? I'm not saying cut people off or judge them. I'm saying notice the effect, and then make conscious choices about how much influence to allow. You can love someone and also limit your exposure to them. You can care about someone and also recognize they're not a healthy companion for your journey. The person I've been describing throughout this journey, they weren't famous, weren't special by worldly measures, just someone who had walked the path far enough to embody what it teaches. And meeting them showed you this is real. This actually exists. A human being can actually become this. That's the value of wise companions. Not that they're perfect or have all the answers, but that they embody possibilities you might not believe in otherwise. They show you what's on the other side of the work. They remind you what you're moving toward when you get lost in the difficulty of the journey. And if you can't find such companions in your immediate environment, you can find them in books, in teachings, in communities online. The path has been walked by countless people before you. Their wisdom is available. Their experience is documented. You're not starting from scratch. You're joining a lineage of people committed to waking up. Here's what freedom from craving actually feels like. You can enjoy things without clinging to them. You can participate in the world without being enslaved by it. Watch how a bee takes nectar from a flower without harming the flower's beauty or fragrance, just takes what it needs and moves on. That's how a wise person moves through the world. You can have preferences without suffering when you don't get what you prefer. You can hope for good outcomes without being destroyed when outcomes disappoint. You can love deeply without the terror of loss consuming you. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. For one free from pleasure, there's no grief, so how could there be fear? Not because you never experience pleasure, but because you're not enslaved to it. Someone asked what the biggest mistake people make. The answer, thinking they have time. Not because death might come tomorrow, though it might, because every day you spend asleep is a day you don't get back. Every year you postpone waking up is a year lived in fog. This isn't meant to create anxiety, it's meant to create urgency. Not panicked urgency, but the kind of steady commitment that comes from really understanding this life is short, this moment is precious, and sleepwalking through it is a tragic waste. You don't have to become perfect. You don't have to achieve enlightenment. You just have to start paying attention. Start noticing your patterns. Start making conscious choices instead of running on autopilot. Start being present for the life you're actually living instead of lost in thoughts about some other life. And here's what's remarkable. The moment you start doing this, things shift. Not everything changes overnight, but something essential changes. You're no longer a passive victim of your own mind. You're an active participant in your own experience. "3 hours ago, you began listening. Now, you're here. Something may have shifted, Or maybe nothing seems different at all. Both are fine. These teachings don't demand immediate transformation. They settle slowly, like sediment drifting to the bottom of still water. The path remains. Walk it when you're ready, or don't walk it at all. The path doesn't need you, but it's there if you need it. What I've shared with you isn't abstract philosophy. It's mechanics, cause and effect as reliable as gravity. Plant seeds of kindness, harvest peace. Plant seeds of resentment, harvest suffering. The choice is always yours, moment by moment, thought by thought. Your mind creates your world, not someday, not eventually, right now. The thoughts you're thinking as you hear these words are shaping your experience of this moment, and this moment is the only one that exists. So here's what I want you to take with you. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. You need waking up. You need to see clearly what you're already doing, and then choose whether to keep doing it. The island you need when floods come, you build it now, in ordinary moments, through small acts of presence, by noticing your breath, feeling your feet on the ground, tasting your food. Stone by stone, moment by moment, the island grows. And when grief hits, when panic comes, when life falls apart as it sometimes does, you'll have somewhere to stand. Not invulnerable, but not swept away. This journey we've taken together, these 3 hours, they're just the beginning. The real work happens in your life, in your choices, in the seeds you plant from this moment forward. May you be peaceful. May you be free. May you know the happiness that doesn't depend on anything external. And may you remember, the freedom you seek isn't somewhere else. It's here, waiting for you to arrive. The path is yours. Walk it well.